I remember Richard, our in-house counsel, Richard Sullivan, saying, "Please be patient with me. This was my first pandemic."
Yeah.
You know? And I think that really gave us all permission to kind of say, it's not answers that people need right now. It's just care and to show care for one another. That I think allowed our agents not to turtle. In other words, they were able to go out there and to call their clients and say, "I care about you, just asking how you're doing. Is there anything I can do?"
Welcome back to Realty. We're here today once again with Larry and Paul, our co-owners, and Colleen, our CEO. Thank you guys for being here today. So we're joking that Guy Raz hasn't called us yet for how you built this.
Yeah, why is
That's
that?
crazy. So we're doing our own. All right, yeah. So let's jump right in. Who wants to take just the first question briefly, like just how Gibson Sotheby's International Realty began?
And take that. Yeah. Back in 2006, we got a call. Larry and I worked together, merger acquisition and franchising. We got a call from a consultant person we knew that was in the office of Gibson Domain. And I think her words were, "These people need your help," to come in and help them kind of package the company to sell it. And that's kind of what we specialized in. Till we went in, I think the spring of 2006, and it just kind of evolved there. At some point, they're like, "Why don't you guys just buy it?" And then, from there, it became, we worked out the numbers, worked out the succession plan for them, and then started approaching brands during it. We actually brought in some other people that we weren't even going to do it. Remember? And then one day, Larry and I had this conversation, and Larry was doing a lot of traveling at the time. He'd leave on Monday, come back on Friday, and you guys were little in school, you and Amy.
That's a hard way to have a family.
Yes.
Tough.
So he kind of jumped at it, and the point was I'd try to grow the company. Larry kind of run the day to day, and that's kind of how it evolved. And you can add some more about the Sotheby's part.
Yeah, yeah. And here we are today. Yeah, and we had I had the good fortune of heading up most of, at that time, Realogy's brands, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA. And this Sotheby brand arrived at Realogy around 2006, really, I think is when it happened. And all of a sudden, my teams were competing with the Sotheby team. I did not have that in my brands. And whenever we'd go to a presentation, they'd want to know, well, can I be Sotheby's? And it just kind of planted in our heads, this brand had something unique. So when we had the opportunity, we actually, Paul said, let's try Sotheby's. Paul's the one that kind of kicked it off because I was, like I said, I represent all the other brands, and I could figure out what they were about. And we approached Sotheby's, and here we are. Mike Good, thankfully, he gave us what he called the gift. He said, "I'm going to give you a gift, and you better not do anything to damage it."
And we felt like that the company was an amazing company, but it was just in the South End. They dominated the South End, but really didn't go outside of it much. And they needed a brand. They needed a high-end brand to get them out of the South End. And we were lucky enough to be able to do that.
What drew you to the specific company?
You know what? We just got a cold call in, and then once we got in there, we just saw so much upside. I mean, they were locked into one specific neighborhood, but they dominated it, and we said, "If we can scale this thing," and the people were so nice. We got along with all the agents that worked there. We walked through a lot. The courtship was probably 5 or 6 months, I would think, and we just saw a lot of upside.
Particularly, that's where the culture thing came in, because that South End office had a culture like, and I walked to 1,000 offices, across the country, and I never saw a culture like that where they were so bonded together. They took care of each other. They ate dinner on Sunday together, and so it just struck us that, wow, if we could take this thing and move it across and grow with it. And I think so far we've been fairly fortunate because we're very exclusive as to who we talk to, and we make it's a long-term discussion with anyone that's going to join us, because we want to make sure they fit, and that's the most important thing for us. And so I think the culture thing started with the South End, and hopefully it continues.
Can we talk a little bit about just like the early motivation for expansion, just what drove that?
Yeah, there was a fellow named Dr. Dick McKenna. I had the good fortune of going to his management courses. He did it exclusively for Century 21. And you picked up a lot about growing business and how important it was. And one of the sayings that he said that has stayed with me forever is real estate companies are always growing. They're either growing larger or they're growing smaller. So we took that philosophy that we weren't going to grow smaller. And we just kind of, as the market changed, as things changed, and I'm sure we'll get into that conversation, we realized we couldn't, there's no status quo. You couldn't stay the way you were. You had to continue to try to grow. And we grew strategically, we believe. But that was the impetus of it.
And that's what you really got to take advantage of, which we did. Once you did that first deal, people start looking at you. There's a buzz in the market, and that's where the opportunities lie. And that's what we did.
Thank God you guys did that, because I will tell you that one of the things I've noticed is it's gotten harder and harder and harder for a small real estate company to operate and compete in the world that we're in. So a lot of the consolidation that we're seeing out there is not necessarily some kind of crazy arms race or something like that. It's genuinely that smaller companies are having a greater and greater struggle with competing in today's world and keeping up with the pace of change. So had you not done that, I don't know what would have happened.
And the smaller companies have that feeling that that's their family. And when they reach out to us, it's never like in desperation. It's about, like, I want to keep this culture, but I know I have to grow in order to compete. I can't grow the way the market is requiring now. So would you consider talking to us? That's kind of how it all starts.
Yeah, it's the staying power that I think we've really been able to maintain. And I think what I would love to get into is just the core values that have made that, because that's one thing. At this point, we're 30 offices, and those core values have been consistent from the beginning. So, Colleen, do you want to just walk us through our core values we've had since the beginning?
Sure, of course. I think a big piece of it truly is partnering. That's from the start. It's been, how can we help our agents grow? And then as a result of us helping our agents grow, we've grown as an organization. And so it's an enormous part of it. But a huge piece of it is collaboration. And people are always shocked by that after they join the company. They say we can't get over how nice everybody is. They can't get over the fact that it's not a cutthroat environment at all. It's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of scenario, that agents work together, they share with one another, they're helping each other grow and come along in the environments that they're in. And ultimately that builds momentum for everybody. And, and that's part of the way that Larry and Paul have chosen to grow the company as well, is taking a look at how we can help our existing agent body grow. And then the people that come on board, how we can help them grow and how they can help us grow. It's just a tremendous the amount of momentum that comes out of that.
And what happens is we have so many real life examples of that now that, the credibility is so strong. When you talk to someone and say, look, if you give us an opportunity, you're probably going to do better next year than you did this year. And we can point out 20 agents, 10 teams, companies that have joined us and said, everybody thrives under our leadership and the way we run the company. So the credibility is very strong. And we had to build that. We had to build that because we were the new guys at one time.
And we had to take some risks. Like at the beginning, we had a threshold, which nobody had, for taking people. We wouldn't take new people because we didn't want to be a trainer and have the resources taken away from the others. And Larry and I did not list and sell, still don't list and sell, which was a big deal back in the day. It gave us that they knew we were there for them.
And we extended that to the leadership team.
Yeah.
Now that our team that leads the company competes with our agents. And that's a strong point for us.
I agree.
Let's dig in a little bit to just the downturn, the 2008, the uncertainty there. If we can walk through just what that looked like.
It's actually, it was a great growth opportunity, but we didn't know that.
Yeah,
we were staring down the barrel of nothing. We stood in front of that's when we learned about the culture of the company. We stood in front of our agents. At that time was mostly the South End and maybe one other spot. I don't know, Dorchester. Yeah. And we had to tell them. I said, guys, we don't know how we're going to pay the business. We're there. So we're going to be honest with you, because if you want to do something else, you certainly can.
Right.
And literally several of the agents didn't take their paychecks for closings
They would
for
just,
months.
our thing, we can cash them.
Yeah, that was when we can cash them, but they kept cash in the bank account so we can pay the bills. And that's what I think is the strength of our company is our agents. They're a family. They know that. They know we're there for them if we need them, but
Yeah.
man, were they ever there for us at that time. We got us through that. It was like a 6-month period, very hard. And then we realized, because we both were merger acquisition people, there's other people struggling like this. And we kind of went out, and that's when we ended up picking up a lot of the Boston markets. We went out and talked to other companies and said, we're here, we're all together. Let's just get in a crouch and keep moving.
It was funny. Everybody kind of needed each other
Yeah.
then, and we found the people we needed, and they needed us, and we were able to grow.
There were our 7 core offices. Yeah, there were 7 offices, and we were that way for a few years. So we realized we could now do it again.
Yeah.
And then kind of navigating those uncertain times. The pandemic ended up being like a quick hit of uncertainty and stress. And then we sort of, obviously the market went crazy, and that was even a little bit crazy as well to deal with. But do you want to walk through just kind of what our version of the COVID looked like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, COVID ultimately, when we started to realize that something very serious was happening, we were having daily conversations, and we decided that we were going to all get through this together. And of course, we couldn't be in the same room, which created its own sense of challenge to it. But every single day, we got all of the agents on a Zoom for a while. I said, get out, shower, put on your clothes, get dressed for work, and let's do this. And I think a big piece of that was, first of all, doing it together, but second of all, saying it's okay not to have all the answers, because none of us did. I remember Richard, our in-house counsel, Richard Sullivan, saying, please be patient with me. This was my first pandemic, And I think that really gave us all permission to kind of say, it's not answers that people need right now. It's just care, and to show care for one another. So, that I think allowed our agents not to turtle. In other words, they were able to go out there and to call their clients and say, I care about you, just asking how you're doing. Is there anything I can do? And we had agents who were grocery shopping for their clients. We had agents who were helping them sign up for vaccinations online. We had, everything you can imagine. We had one agent, she called herself the Flower Fairy. She has an enormous garden, and she would go out there and cut flowers and just drive by people's houses with little notes saying, someone's thinking of you. And that just helped people get through it. Because ultimately, we're just one big tribe of people who care about each other. And so we found ways to show it. It was unusual. I don't ever want to go back there, but I will tell you, I think we did it better than I could have ever.
And it was a leadership team. Like we just over communicated, right?
All the time, every day. Like I say, we got on Zoom every day. The other thing that made us different, and which really helped our reputation and credibility, was we had struck 2 acquisition deals in 2019 that were due to close in March of 2020. When everything happened, we had every right, or if we were smart, we would have said, let's just step away and we won't do this. But we had given them our word. So we followed through with our integrity, and we opened with 2 companies in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
Nobody was doing anything.
That's right.
We acquired 2 companies.
That's right.
And in January, we had done the biggest one.
We had already done one, right?
So we had just taken on the biggest deal we've ever done. The pandemic hit, and then we had 2 in the hopper. And it was like, how are we?
Yeah, and they ended up being the ones that carried us out for us.
Right.
That's where all the markets went, right?
Well, and I will tell you, the people who were with us said we were so grateful that it happened when it did. And in other words, that they had joined a larger company where we had the resources and the wherewithal to kind of collaborate and say, how are we going to get through this together? Because I think it really helped them stay on track. It really took that. You have to kind of know how to get through uncertainty. And this company, with you guys at the helm, was forged in a time of uncertainty. So it wasn't your first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a couple obstacles thrown at us, early on.
Yeah.
And it made us harder. Right? We just we only knew to go forward.
Yeah.
Made me prematurely gray, but other than that.
You still look pretty good for a 45-year-old guy, though.